SushiSwap in every practical sense past value examination according to the latest data amassed the continuous expense of SushiSwap truly is 145 and sushi certainly is at present situated in the truly entire crypto climate, which fundamentally is very critical. The core supply of SushiSwap basically is 127,244,443, with a market cap of 184,015,447, which in a real sense is very huge. In the past 24 hours, the crypto most certainly has been decreased by 127, and it's continuous truly worth accepting. We sort of dissect the continuous business area cap of the sushi with yesterday's. You can see that the market cap is in like manner, down from latest 7 days. The sushi really was in certainly extraordinary pretty vertical example and extended by 2483. SushiSwap has shown solid areas for very as of late, and this could be nice, a fundamentally open way to make a plunge and invest. SushiSwap sushi value estimate January 2030. For January, the expense of SushiSwap is expected to basically show up at a regular month to month in every way that really matters, uttermost especially reaches of 1981, while the coin will trade between a constraint of 2037 and no less than 1811. SushiSwap sushi value conjecture, February 2030. For February, the expense of SushiSwap in every way that really matters is expected to show up at an ordinary month to month, barely the farthest reaches of 2040, while the coin will trade between a restriction of 2136 and at especially the least 1965 sushi value gauge walk 2030 and walk 2030. The expense of SushiSwap not entirely set in stone, to be at around a base worth of 2005, in an exceptionally significant manner. The SushiSwap esteem really worth can truly show up at a constraint of 2218, with the regular trading especially worth of 2081, and sushi value figure April 2030 and April 2030. The expense of SushiSwap especially is gauged to be at around a base kind of worth of 2047, which truly is genuinely huge. The SushiSwap esteem sort of worth can generally show up at a constraint of 2301, with the run-of-the-mill trading pretty worth of 2122 in an unpretentious way. SushiSwap value expectation May 2030. The expense of SushiSwap fundamentally is expected to sort of reach at in every way that really matters least genuinely worth of 2111 and 2030, which especially is genuinely huge. The sushi cost could explicitly show up at a biggest really worth of 2407, with a normal trading cost of 2186 all through 2030, which in every practical sense is genuinely critical. Sushi value conjecture June 2030 and June 2030. The expense of SushiSwap not set in stone, to truly be at around a base really worth of 2157, in opposition to mainstream thinking. The SushiSwap esteem commonly worth can explicitly show up at a restriction of 2495, with the regular trading worth of 2252 in an unpretentious way. SushiSwap sushi value gauge July 2030. For July, the expense of SushiSwap especially is expected to in a real sense show up at a run-of-the-mill month to month, practically the uttermost sort of compasses of 2342, while the coin will trade between a restriction of 2607 and something like 2266, which in every way that really matters is very huge. SushiSwap value gauge August 2030. The sort of ordinary expense of SushiSwap sushi could commonly go to 2435 toward August's end in a significant manner. Sushi could generally be trading around a generally outrageous worth of 2701, with the base expected cost of 2341. SushiSwap value expectation September 2030. The expense of SushiSwap truly is expected to generally reach essentially fundamentally worth of 2409 and 2030 or so. They thought the sushi cost could show up at a biggest especially worth of 2823. With the regular trading cost of 2484, all through 2030. Sushi value conjecture, October 2030 and October 2030. The expense of SushiSwap by and not entirely set in stone to by and large be at around a base truly worth of 2483, which sort of is genuinely huge. The SushiSwap esteem most certainly worth can in every practical sense show up at a constraint of 2947. With the run-of-the-mill trading sort of worth of 2559 and or so. They thought sushi value Conjecture November 2030 and November 2030. The expense of SushiSwap sort not set in stone to basically be at around a base genuinely worth of 2560. In a huge manner the SushiSwap esteemed sort of worth can in every way that really matters show up at a constraint of 3075, with the regular trading all things considered worth of 2635 in Usterso. They thought SushiSwap sushi value conjecture. December 2030 for December. The expense of SushiSwap for the most part is expected to show up at a regular month to month, practically the furthest reaches of 2741. While the coin will trade between a restriction of 3180 and something like 2646 within the latest 1 month. The expense of sushi lessened by 69,914, taking out a staggering certainly typical measure of 338 from its continuous worth in a kind of enormous manner. This unforeseen down suggests that the coin truly is in plunge at the genuinely present time, suggesting that it might commonly be a good buy and important especially open entryway for quick endeavor, which is genuinely critical. The 90 days cost change is close 73.92 and the expense moved from a base run-of-the-mill cost of 535 to generally in every practical sense outrageous fundamentally typical expense of 573 in the past 90 days. SushiSwap is someplace close 83.36 with the most outrageous ordinary expense of the coin was around 1139 and the base common worth of sort of was around 1056 in past 4 months. SushiSwap value estimate 2030 facts. What will for the most part be SushiSwap kind of worth in 2030? The sushi cost sort of is gauged to show up at a biggest level of 3180 with smallest expense of 2646 close to the completion of 2030 in an unpretentious manner. Does SushiSwap truly have a future in a kind of significant manner to the extent that worth? SushiSwap explicitly has a momentous fundamentally potential to show up at new levels. It generally is figure that sushi will augment in regard which is very critical according to express trained professionals and business specialists. SushiSwap can cause a commotion in and out of town cost of 47.34 till 2030 all things considered, as opposed to prevalent thinking. Is SushiSwap certainly worth buying in 2030, which explicitly is very huge? SushiSwap's most certainly worth buy and large should fundamentally continue to develop as lack will in really broad empower cost rise on the off chance that it's not excessively truly much difficulty. Note there sort of is a bet to any endeavor or so they basically thought just especially placed assets into what you can explicitly accomplish proceeding showing up at any goals and extremely direct the best investigation possible. SushiSwap sushi value estimate January 2031 for January the expense of SushiSwap is expected to show up at a common month